All right. Welcome everyone to the TMH Charge Pilot Schoolhouse Electrification webinar here. We're super excited to dive into what electrification looks like for various school districts, what challenges may come up, what benefits our fabulous presenters have seen from electrifying so far, and what electrification could look like for you. So before we dive right into our questions here, I want to go over our various aspects here. So first, we're going to introduce you to the Mobility House and what Charge Pilots and Charging and Energy Management is. Then we'll learn about our presenters. Then we will rotate and go around various questions on what school bus electrification has looked like for our presenters here. And then end today with the various services for analytics and consulting that TMH can provide. So first things first, the Mobility House has been around for over 14 years, has over 300 employees and 35,000 customers worldwide. We bring over 6 years of V2G experience and have over 1,200 sites managed by Charge Pilots with over 160,000 chargers installed worldwide. So what is charging and energy management? Essentially, it is a software that controls electric vehicle chargers. And it can really help modulate and make sure that you are staying under what your hardware restrictions are for the amount of electricity that can go through your site. And we can help modulate when charging sessions start and stop and at what point they peak to help you save money on your utility bill. Actively ensure that you are staying below your grid limit, even if you have chargers on site that could exceed your grid limit, as well as prioritize vehicle charging based on vehicle schedules. We can also provide insights into what your chargers are doing and help troubleshoot any issues as they arise. So charging and energy management, with a small investment in charging management services, you can actually see a huge reduction into the amount of transformer costs for your site, the amount of utility costs that you will see, and it can really help simplify the design of your site and save huge amounts on your utility bill, or help boost uptime for your chargers due to our troubleshooting and reporting. We are also hardware agnostic, so there are many sites that have different chargers from different manufacturers, and it all goes through one dashboard so that you have one web portal that you go to look at all of your chargers, what buses are currently charging, and what everything looks like at your site. It really is a really great system to help you be able to look at your fleet any time of day and address any issues as they may come up. What does make Charge Pilot more unique is the fact that we have an on-site controller at each of our sites, which helps uptime. If something is just connected directly to the cloud, if your internet goes out, which we all know how reliable internet is, your chargers could stop charging. Our on-ground controller is still there managing chargers even when an internet connection gets disrupted to help ensure that your fleet is still charging and no site limits are being broken in any way. And in addition to that, you only need one Charge Pilot controller for most sites, and that allows you to plan for the future, add more chargers and even different types of chargers down the road, as long as they are OCPP compliant, which the vast majority of chargers out there are. And with that brief intro on the Mobility House, Charge Pilot, and charging and energy management, we will get into introducing our presenters today. First off, we have Bobby Brown from Ocean View. Bobby, please let us know a little bit about yourself and what your project does look like.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to be asked to talk with you all today. I'm just your average guy out here in California, and I'm in a small school district. My bio's down there. Ocean View is just at 5 schools. Um, my fleet is not a large fleet. Um, Ocean View is a disadvantaged community, and so we needed to get our diesel buses replaced. The CBO and I met, and she said, "Well, I know that they're worn out, but I don't have money to give you, and so go out and find money." And the money out here in California was for electric buses, so we started down the foray of how we could find out about electric buses. Um, Kind of got a steering group together with my mechanic and my transportation supervisor and some other folks that are in the community. Like you might have people that are over at the Air Pollution Control District, and I met the Mobility House folks at one of these conferences that we all seem to go to, and it was through them that we started learning about what kinds of chargers we needed, how much infrastructure we had here at Ocean View. Um, and I don't want to take the whole session to talk about myself, but that's that's really kind of where I'm at. Uh, Ocean View needed to meet our energy representative for the Southern California Energy SEE is who we use out here. And I went to a conference and I literally had to ask for who my rep was, and um, you end up talking with the rep and learning about level 2, level 3, how much power you have at Ocean View. And there was a program here through Edison that would let you um, put in infrastructure. And the grants that I got um, allowed me to put in that infrastructure. Jeff, am I covering more or less what you wanted? Because I could talk the whole time.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just a little bit about your project and what the future may look like for Ocean View.
Well, the future for Ocean View is I never dreamed that we would get. We were asked by our energy provider to agree that we'd get 4 electric buses, and I only had grants for 2 from the state of California. Um, so I promised that I would keep looking, and they said that they would take a chance on making a project for 4. And before we even got it built, the Air Pollution Control District gave us the money through grant process, and we had 4 buses coming. We got it all built out. Um, well, we've got some more buses that are getting old, and I've got 2 more grants that have come through again. So I'm now going back to Edison for another round of Charge Ready. That Edison is our local energy provider, and seeing if I could put in 2 more chargers. I chose to put in level 2 chargers. Um, Seemed like that was all I needed for my buses that were only going 40 miles a day. There were 100-mile buses. But now the world has changed, and I think out here in California, I'm going to need a fast level charger. So I'm going to ask Edison to let me put in a fast level charger with this program that I'm going to sign up with. Um, the mobility house really helped. You know, I only have 4 buses, so it's not like I have a huge fleet like some of these guys do. But I know that as we continue to electrify my fleet, now I have 22 buses. Um, at some point, when we're charging all those, we'll need to control how much power is coming through so that I don't have peak and demand charges. And so they help with that. Um, their dashboards have helped my clerk across the way when the state wants to know information on the grant and how great their electric buses are. The dashboard pulls up how much power has been used by each bus in a quarter or in a year. Those kinds of charges, that's really helpful. The dashboard helps us know whether or not how our chargers are charging, if our drivers plug them in properly. I signed up with them so that with the mobility house so that they would monitor my charger. They let me know in an email whenever one of them's not functioning. I didn't even know it because I'm here in my office doing 200 emails a day. And they send people out to fix it because we didn't want to be in the charger repair business. So that's pretty painless. People come out from the chargers that they help us select that was on the list of Edison to give us money back on those chargers. And then they even signed us up for LCFS credits where we're making money on a quarterly basis. For quarter 1 of this year, they'll send us a check for they've arranged, so we'll get a check for $1,244.29 for the first quarter of this year. So we'll get money back, and I didn't have to fill out those forms to get that stuff done. So that all that kind of stuff helped me out. And
yeah, we were super excited about those LCFS credits coming your way here soon. So
yeah,
thank you so much, Bobby.
Sure.
And with that, we'll transition right on over to Gilbert here.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on. My name is Gilbert Bluefeather Rosas, and I've helped electrify 2 different districts. Stockton Unified, I think, is the 15th largest district approximately in California, and Modesto City Schools is the 25th largest district. You can see some of the overview of what we've done. But at Stockton, we converted over, while I was there, 11 out of the 96 buses. And we had an array of level 2 and DC fast chargers there. At Modesto, I am the Director of Sustainability and Adaptation. So I worked on our fleet. We've converted half of our fleet, 30 out of the 62, and we've even applied for 13 more buses through the second round of the EPA Clean School Bus funding. Just really excited about Mobility House and the charge management. It's allowed us to see, through the app, things offline or how the charging's going. We've done a lot of different things in sustainability, not just the buses, but that's what you guys are interested in here is definitely, all the charging capabilities. We have 30 level 2 DC AC level 2 chargers and 2 DC fast chargers at Modesto. So just excited to be here and kind of share some of the things that we've done and answer any questions that other districts might be looking towards doing with their own fleet. So thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you, Gilbert. All right. Next, we will go to Matt Berlin with Nice Bus here. Oh, it looks like we're having some microphone issues, Matt. Matt, you may want to try exiting and re-entering potentially. And while we're working on getting Matt back here, I'll go over what the next portion will look like here after Matt's able to introduce himself. We will be going over some various questions about what school bus electrification has looked like for each of our presenters, what future projects they're looking at, where they were potentially able to secure funding, and a few other items. But at the end,
any more luck?
We will. Oh yeah, Matt, you're coming through great now.
Anyway. I'm
no worries. I was just going over what the next portion will look like, but Excellent. We'd love to have you intro yourself, and then we'll dive right into it.
So I'm Matt Berlin. I'm the CEO of Nice Bus. We're a nonprofit school bus company in New York City. So we operate, 800 school buses throughout the 5 boroughs, which is about 10% of the city's fleet. And we are, Bobby, if you describe yourself in a great way as helping run a small school district, I'm a frightened big city operator that is, really hemmed in by sort of bureaucracy and large structures, right? We have Con Ed here is lovely, but it can be challenging to work with. The city board of ed can be challenging. There's a lot of layers here. And so we are, we're just in a planning stage. We've got 3 electric buses now, and we are planning for the arrival of 26 more this fall. And really, our work with Mobility House so far has really been planning for the arrival of those buses, getting grants, and really thinking through what the next 10 years looks like, because the approval process here is so hard, and the one hopes that there's no one from the New York City Board of Ed on the phone. Sort of those challenges can be so difficult that it it's hard, but we have to make decisions now that are going to last us for the next decade. And so for us, the great thing about working with the Mobility House has really been your help, their help in kind of helping us plan, think through, helping us develop systems where we can take advantage of grants, where we can make some decisions. I'm happy to talk more about that. And we have sort of interestingly, just sort of looking at the slide here, responding to that, we got two, we were the winner of some EPA buses last summer. So 25 buses through the Clean School Bus Program. And then we also, with Mobility House, applied for a grant from our state energy research and development agency to create 3 model electric school bus depots in New York State. We're doing that with Mobility House, with CalSTART, with WRI, with a local community college and our local League of Conservation Voters, helping the rest of the state learn more about electrification. And again, happy to talk in particular. I think the resource, the thing that I've, if this is to talk about electrification, it's really the challenges of planning and making decisions now with a lot of uncertainty that I'm happy to talk about anything, but that might be something I'm better at talking about than other things. And I'm not going to push mute. So sorry about the background. I'm in a noisy bus depot and some of the attendants are waiting to go out on runs, but I'm not going to dare push that button.
No worries, Matt. We appreciate you. Awesome. So next will be our dive into our various questions here. So I'll go ahead and transition the view to focus on our lovely presenters here. And our first question is going to be for everyone here. What initially got you looking into electrification of your fleet? And before we dive into the answers there, I did want to let you all know who are attending the webinar live. If you type into the chat and end your sentence with a question mark, send us your questions. And if we have additional time, we'll get to any questions at the end from our live viewers here. But without further ado, I'll turn it all over to you on what started you on electrifying your fleet.
I'm always happy to talk about. So, I mean, for us, it's 2 things, or 3 really. One of them is obviously a state mandate in New York State, so we have to be electric by 2035. A second is a Nice Bus as a nonprofit is been created, and our board is really interested in us being sort of on the lead. And third is a belief by our board and the people that work here that there's we all 3 of us bus operators are on the coasts, and well, I think it's all of us in the world, but we're seeing what's happening if we don't even take drastic, what we might think in the staid school busing business is drastic, right? It's hard, but there's an emergency.
I guess I'll go next. Ocean View School District, much like he had just said, wanted to be green. The board wanted to be green. As a facilities director, we're implementing green policies to help the world. I also told you directly earlier that we're an impoverished district. We're in a small air pollution control district on the coast of California, over just above Malibu, just north of Malibu. And there wasn't money to buy more diesel buses. So I was shocked at the price of an electric bus, frankly, and they're going up even more now. But $425,000, I think, is now the price of a Transit here in California with the Bluebird Company, and similarly with Thomas. A diesel bus was quite a bit cheaper, but they've gone up in price too. I think they're like $270,000 or $80,000. I didn't have the money. We needed to buy. We had really old buses, and so coupling with being green, trying to help with problems there with cost. We thought perhaps it would be cost of repair would be savings also on electric buses, and mechanics time for PMing and that type of stuff too. So that's why Ocean View went that route. Maybe Gilbert has more.
At Stockton Unified, we actually received a grant, Clean Mobility in the Schools pilot program. So we applied for it. Didn't know that you could write a grant in 8 days and still get $4.9 million. So we're excited about that. But we only, converted over 11 out of the 96. At Modesto, the board in January of 2022 decided to buy not just a couple, but 30 buses. And so they went out and started getting the PO started. And then we have applied for a lot of grants. And it's a, you know, like Bobby was saying, our board and our superintendent believe in it, and a lot of the administration here in going green and doing what we can. And so we're converting half of our fleet in one shot. And then we've applied for all kinds of programs, HVIP, clean school bus program, all of it. So I kid around that I said, you know, we just put out a whole bunch of applications and try to grab everything we can and try every pilot that we can. So I'm just excited that we're doing this for our district, the kids, and the community.
Yeah, to go along with the funding challenges that arise here, you all kind of went over some various grants that you all won. How did you go about finding these grants? I know a lot of our viewers may be kind of overwhelmed with what the process looks like, but what have you all used for resources for finding grants and finding funding for these initiatives here?
For us, it was at Stockton, it was that we had one of our contractors that we've done some Prop 39 work. He actually said, hey, there's a grant available. Would you apply for it? At Modesto, the inspiration was the bus supplier. They knew of stuff coming on, and so they applied for it. And then through HVIP and all these different ones. I mean, I kid around that we're the single mom at the cash register. We're going to use every coupon we can beg, borrow, and steal to get what we need for our kids. So that's how it happened for us.
Kind of similarly, you get all these emails when you're in the role of a transportation director, and all the bus companies want to sell buses. So as soon as there's a grant out, you get multiple versions of the same grant coming to you from each company. And in a small district like mine, where I'm literally out there helping to jumpstart a bus sometimes, and then I'm over on the roof where we're replacing a roof, you think, my God, how can I get all this information together for a grant? And there must be, you know, levels of people that are grant writers. It's not that complicated. They usually just want a list of the buses you have and how many miles and how old and decrepit they are. It's not a big, scary process. And there's people usually in each of those grants that will help you. So Air Pollution Control District was a grant source, and the state of California was a grant source for me. I don't know about back there in New York where the bureaucracy reigns.
Exactly. So we, I mean, like Gilbert and Bobby, you know, Bobby, you mentioned, you know, you get in a position like this and you sign up for a bunch of lists. So I am, and you know, that just adds to the email to go through them, right? But there are ways that you can, right? I can't remember, but you sign up with the EPA, you sign up with the state Department of Conservation or whatever it is. And so that's how we've heard of things. We also get brought grants. We're brought grants less by the bus vendors and more by possible partners interested in sort of energy conservation. The other thing that we found in some cases is it was harder for us to find out about grants from our local utility. They don't have a good alert system, and it seems like people in that world kind of know where they monitor. So there is a real advantage. I guess I'll just say two other things. There's an advantage to being in an electrification or an environmental kind of community, right? Sort of knowing, you know, having people bring opportunities to you. And what was the second thing? And then the second thing is there's a, you know, for those of us that are bus operators, like we're what everybody wants. So there are lots of people out there who want to do good environmental things, but in fact, we're the ones with 10 or 20 or 100 diesel engines that need to be replaced. We're the ones that, so there, I think, you know, Bobby, you mentioned there are people out there that will help you because, you know, we are the ones who bring, like, we're the people, you know, we're like the whales, and there's lots of people that want to come save us, and that's great, right? And it just matters. You need to just extend the analogy to my colleagues in California. You just need to swim in the part of the ocean where the whatever, you know, oceanographers are or something.
So I want to tie on to that. There's a man named Kent Bullard out here in our area, and I call him the Johnny Appleseed of electric cars. And I think he's part of the Sierra Club, and he wants to do good. This man knew so much about electric vehicles. I didn't know a J1772 plug from a hole in the ground. And these kind of people really just want to help, and he came to meeting after meeting and invited me to steering groups, and they're excited when there's a charging station going in somewhere in the county and they know where it's going to happen. These people will help you. Yeah.
Thank you all. Next, we all know electrifying a fleet will not go perfectly. Any large project will not go perfectly. So I wanted to see what were some challenges you all experienced, and how did you overcome them with electrification?
I've always said that getting these projects done are like spinning plates, right? You got to spin with every appendage you have, and you got to make every consideration from electrical upgrades that have to happen on site. How much solar do I need, and how does solar battery storage work? Supply chain issues. What's the mix of DC and level 2 charging? You got to know a lot of different things. So you need to bring in a lot of different partners. And the hiccups that happen are, does this charge management match with this bus? And is the issue of communication in the bus, or is it in the charger, or is it in the communication line? I found the easiest way is you get everybody together and have them prove at the same time that it's not them. So it really is. There's a lot of things to know about infrastructure and solar and battery and everything else. So you need help figuring all those things out, and you need a good team. Otherwise, it's not going to go smoothly. And both at Stockton and Modesto, we got it done in 11 months from time you break ground to the time you're charging. And I just saw Matt's eyes go up, because 11 months is a fast pace. It's usually 2 to 2.5 years. So we've done it twice. It wasn't just an accident. So we're glad to help and talk about all those different issues that went on.
And Gilbert, I feel like you also sort of implied that you need some patience, and you just need to be willing to keep the plates spinning. Like you
have to get inventive. You have to figure out ways. And
right.
What I always did was, I had a timeline of what I wanted to do, and then I had 7 different contingencies. If one of those things went wrong, here's what we're going to do. And you have to have a logical path theory of what goes with what. And you have to be inventive and come up with new ways. And so, yes, when you're, just imagine when you're building the Oregon Trail and going the first one to go through and cut a new path, there's going to be a lot of pitfalls that you hadn't thought about. Part of the free money thing is with the grants is that you got to report, you got to help and do webinars and do things like this. So I'm in a consortium of a lot of different people talking to other school districts. We need to collaborate. The fact that Mobility House is putting this on, it gives us a venue to talk things through and to share common problems, and kind of not pull the fire alarm every time something happens, but look logically in how we fix this and how we get it done. You are eating an elephant sometimes. You need 14,000 friends with sharp tools and a willingness to take a leg and take something else.
Yep.
Well, let's be real. If you're a director, you want to have a successful project. And I said to my CBO more than once, my God, Michelle, I sure hope this all works and it doesn't come crashing down and burning and you're just going to drop kick me off the planet. Because if you're putting electric vehicles in your fleet out there, you want to have a success and you want it to work right. And it's scary. And you don't know everything. But that's the way it is for a lot of the projects here. For me at Ocean View, I don't have all the answers. You end up getting smart people like Jeffrey and Zohab and the team. You get the community liaison person that loves electric vehicles, and you just start in on it. And for me, I tried to keep it as mainstream as I could. I didn't even know some of the concerns that Gilbert just talked about at the beginning. I was choosing a standard electric bus, and I didn't know that I was on the cutting edge. I thought, Gilbert and other smart people had done this a million times, and I was coming behind them. And then people start asking you questions like you're in the beginning of this. It's really weird. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we know a little bit of the challenges. Now, what are some benefits you would like to highlight of transitioning over to electric buses and chargers? I would love to hear about that.
Well, the reason the headache of being first is worth it is the fact that, people can argue and debate all the different politics of why and what and why be first. I think number one, because you can kind of control your own destiny and you can help with stuff. The other is that there are no bad side effects of taking half the diesel emissions out of our kids' breathing area. I mean, that could be 8 times their exposure of normal in a 1-hour trip back and forth, especially like you guys were saying, in disadvantaged communities. Both Stockton and Modesto are about 82 to 86% disadvantaged community. We don't have as many options. We don't have parents staying home to drive them to school all the time. So they got to get there by bus. And so we really are, there's no negative of taking half the emissions out. We've received 25 of our 30 buses already. They're in operation and running on routes, and the community will benefit from it. We are actually leading the way as a district for the community because not a lot of people have electric vehicles in Stanislaus County. But we're hoping to show through even student libraries and videos that this is why we're doing it and this is what it can do. And the drivers love it. It's quieter. There's no emissions. It's just a good thing to do. I've always heard that if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes what your sacrifice is. So sustainability to me is what you're willing to do individually and corporately to have a greener future. And I think we're helping.
He sounds so smart. Gilbert, you just sound so smart. I want to hang out with you. The kids
you live in Ocean View. I want to go hang out with you. So it's all good.
Right on. The kids love riding on the Tesla bus. I'll say that's an advantage. They think it's a Tesla bus. The PM schedule for my mechanics is we still have to check out our electric buses, but there's been a lot less to fix. And I think right now, because we happen to be buying these Bluebird buses mainly, and Cummings is the motor work that's in there. They are willing to really support me. There's bugs in these buses. There's problems, just like with the diesels, but they come out and they have upgraded things, and I haven't had those costs. So that's been very helpful, frankly.
It's also, in addition to that, it's really interesting and fun. I mean, Bobby, you sound like a man after my own heart, kind of out jumping a bus or being up on the roof, and it's just interesting, right? To do like, it's something new to learn about, and I mean, everything else is important too, but it really is incredibly interesting, and to see for at least us 3 guys at the bus companies, we're on the older end of our career, and to sort of see what's going to happen for the next 50 years is, it's really, really interesting and fun.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you all. Perfect. So when looking at your projects overall, what types of considerations did you have to make when looking at buses, at chargers, and what made you all decide to go, hey, we need a charging and energy management system as well?
I think for a lot of the things that you've talked about, you want to make sure you're not increasing demand charges. You want to make sure that you're charging smart. You want to make sure that there's some app or some way of knowing what charge level you are, being able to remotely connect in and not know that, something went down and you didn't know about it till you get back in tomorrow. I mean, all of those things. And I think that, again, the charge management just lets you know that you're doing the best you can or taking all the steps you can to make sure that you're being good stewards of your money, making sure that you're spending the right amount for these things. We are big consumers. Modesto City Schools is like a little city. And so we want to make sure that we're not spending a whole bunch of money. But one of the things that helped out is even like when doing the electric buses, as the diesel prices climb up, we look like geniuses, where it's showing that total cost of ownership is $1.38 per mile that we're saving. And so we are trying every way we can to be good stewards with what we're trusted with. And I agree with Matt, but I don't want to play in the sandbox forever. I mean, I'd like to retire and have fun, but it is fun and exciting to see these things happen and to see the electric come to fruition and give a good example that everybody else can follow.
Yeah, for us, charge management was really important from the start for a few reasons. Each of our depots has about 200 buses. And so, and it's complicated to put infrastructure in. So we knew, like everywhere else, we'd have to kind of dig once, and we needed someone who could help us plan, and frankly, someone who could help us talk to the utility about, the traditional way in New York City is to add up every bus that's going to be on or every load, assume that they're all going to be turned on July 20th at 2 p.m. when all the air conditioning's on, and put that much power in. And that is wildly expensive, really impossible. And so being able to work with, charge management to us was important, really for cost and time reasons, to be able to work with our utility and explain that we didn't need as much infrastructure as they initially thought we had. The other thing that was really important for us about charge management was, again, I'm a frightened city bureaucrat. Really worried about, as we think about vehicles and think about chargers, being able to have different platforms that are agnostic, so that we knew, because I think likely we're not all going to have all the same vehicles and all the same chargers. We can't know that. And so knowing that those components can be separated was really important to us, rather than, we purposely have not looked for a unified solution to everything, because we don't think that's the future. And so that was important to us in charge management, was hardware agnosticism. I don't know if that's a word, but
yep, it is today.
Right, it is today. There you go.
Matt's making up words. I love that. Charge management for me wasn't a big concern in the beginning, frankly, because I just was going to get two buses from the state, and I wasn't learning all this terminology, these new words, and it was kind of swimming in that group of people that were kind of helping me learn about that. So I knew that my energy provider, Southern California Edison, was going to give me my own meter from my buses as part of their program. And then I had a 5-year honeymoon where I wasn't going to get charged peak and demand. And peak and demand had hit my world maybe a year and a half prior, when I learned what peak and demand was, that the Ocean View Junior High School was running too much power at certain times of the year. And even though we went 1 unit into the next zone of power, the whole bill was going to be inflated at that cost of that greater amount. And that was a huge charge. So I was trying to reduce peak and demand at the junior high. We're changing lighting and HVAC and all other stuff like that to be green, to get underneath that peak charge. And then they demand more money. So Zohab, there he was at one of these California groups of people where you're learning about your job and different things you can learn about, aspects, and you can choose which classes you're going to. And I knew I needed a charger from Edison that would work, that was on their list. I learned not from Zohab, who's with the Mobility House, but from someone else that charger was having some troubles. And I thought, well, that's the one I got to get. And then I learned that there were more chargers. I learned about energy management, and I thought, well, gosh, I don't want to have peak and demand in my bus yard. I only have 2 of them, but eventually you saw I had to have 4, and I got 4, and now I'm going for 6. Well, eventually you're going to light up the world, and Edison doesn't really want you to be, well, they'd like to sell you power, but you don't want to pay a pile of money, so peak and demand and charge management is really important that way. And then the software that comes with it that does let you know when you're sitting and you're having this conference that charger number 3 over there has gone down, and it's not charging bus 16 anymore, and it's not going to be going on the road this afternoon. You need to go out and check out what's going on with that. That's an important aspect of charge management. So it's just kind of common sense that way. That's what it meant for me. And then we're in the beginning of this new whole community of buses, of electric buses, where things are changing quickly. Kind of like cars changed quickly 20 years ago. Some buses are really smart. Some buses are not smart. Some buses talk with charge management. So you kind of want to look at that kind of stuff. And charge management has been important, and they've really helped me with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then before we get into potential Q&A questions, again, reminder to the audience that if you have any questions that you would like, please put them in your chat and make sure you end it with a question mark, and then we can go into those next. But before we go into those, I just want to end it with one more question. What advice would you have for schools or school districts looking at electrifying who haven't started looking into it just yet? What is your advice from these three sages?
I think it's to ask as many questions as you can. I think, there is no silly question. I think you got to go on these webinars. I think you have to educate yourself. I think you have to call people. I mean, a lot of times on stuff, my email's out there. We collaborate, we talk. I think you just got to learn as much as you can about all areas, and rely on people that know, that have done it. I always also like to have them check out similar sized districts, check other footprints that are the same as yours. We have common things no matter what the size we are, but you want it to work in your area, like your district and your amount of students and your amount of buses.
That's kind of how I felt about it also, Gilbert. I just kind of felt like a sponge. I needed to get around people that knew this because I had to do it. And if I met a Gilbert or a Matt in my life or a Jeffrey, well, then I wanted their number. If I could get their number and they were willing to talk with me after this meeting, or I would connect with them. I would go over to the County Air Pollution Control District, and they didn't know much about this either. Their grants were for tractors out here in the farmland, not for buses. So all their forms were for measuring the benefit of them giving us money for tractors. We had to figure that out. The state of California was kind of the same way in the beginning, really there. So surround yourself by people that kind of know, that are swimming in that circle. That was the biggest help for me.
Yeah, I don't know what, I mean, I don't know if I have more to add. I think it's, it might just be the, diving in and starting is that there isn't really a roadmap, which again goes back to what's exciting about it.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, it looks like we do have one question from the audience here. What can you say about the safety impact of the transition to e-buses on bus drivers, bus riders, and the community at large?
Well, I still have a lot to learn about the safety impact. It's a kind of a big question. One piece of the safety thing that I can comment that I'm still at the beginning of this is my mechanic is a diesel mechanic and he's near retirement. I just have one. I'm not like Gilbert with probably has a whole fleet of them. He doesn't know about electric buses. So right now my buses are really mainly being supported by the vendor and by the people that do the motors in those buses. But because we're in this area where we have about 8 school districts on the Oxnard Plain, because we're all little kingdoms out here, they're all starting to get electric buses. And so now we're having classes. You kind of swim in a circle. So it's like, well, all the mechanics need to help. So if there's a class, I want to put on a class over here at Ocean View so I can meet the other mechanics and learn what their problems are. And we're all sharing, the safety aspects of being a mechanic and learning about all the clothing and things that you might need to keep yourself safe in the zone around your bus for discharging if you're working on the high power. There's probably more aspects with my driver trainer where she's wants to talk to the school bus drivers about how to do the power disconnects on the bus. I'm sure the California Highway Patrol wants to learn how to properly shut down electric buses if you're in an accident. So there's a lot to be learned in that question. It's a very good question.
For us, we have less experience operating than our colleagues in California, but we have found them so far to be safe. Two of the things we note about them. So certainly there is a need for more training. There's a need for training for drivers, for mechanics, for first responders. That's a real challenge here in New York City and maybe in other large areas where if you, I don't know how many vehicles there are on New York City's roads, but you'll buy buses, you'll talk to people, and they'll urge you to go to the local fire department and train the first responders. And, with all respect to the New York City Fire Department, the fact that we're putting 3 or 26 EVs on the road, they just don't want it. It's such a small fraction. So there is, and that's true with mechanics, I think, and drivers as well, right? We're going to have 29 EVs driving around by Thanksgiving, but that's out of a fleet of 800. We do swap drivers sometimes. So there is this kind of funny tipping thing around training, where you certainly want to train those 29, you want to train their replacements, but sometimes 3 drivers or 4 drivers are out. So anyway, that's just, I don't know if it's a safety issue or a training issue. It's an interesting challenge. There isn't, I will say, a lot of great training material. We actually are developing some with our NYSERDA grant. But the two of the positive things I'll say about that, one of them is that we've been really happy with the data that comes off the buses. So we're able to monitor the buses and keep them safer, we think, much more than the internal combustion vehicles. And finally, you never know when someone asks about safety and they start talking about battery fires or something. We are crazy to think about driving an internal combustion engine around, belching all that pollution and what that does for the occupants of the vehicle and the people on the road, to sort of, there's a way, right? We all in school busing are so proud of our safety record, as we should be. But we haven't been so safe for young lungs, right? Or for the environment, even though we have an enviable record when it comes to collisions. So I guess it's important to kind of think through what you're comparing, I think.
Absolutely. And then I wanted to see, what do the next couple of years potentially look like for you all and your projects, and how's kind of that planning going along? Obviously, planning for the future is always hard, but I'm curious as to what the next couple of years may look like for you all.
Well, I know you're just putting your stuff in, huh, Matt? Tell me.
We're putting our stuff in. I have to say, this is where, so some of this is, and we want to share with our colleagues, but some of this is organized by Mobility House. But I will say that this is where working with a charge management company has been really helpful, because for us, we're putting infrastructure in, as I said, for 200 buses in a depot. And so for us, it's not just getting the next load of 30 chargers in, and then after that, the next load of 100, but it's really planning the service upgrades at our depots so that we can eventually charge 200 buses there. And that we've really relied very heavily on the ability to kind of simulate need and simulate load and understand the impact of charge management. It's very, it's a scary decision, right? I don't know, Bobby or Gil, like at some point you need to decide how much power to bring into your depot. And that's a decision you're going to make once a decade. And it's really, really, it's expensive, and you can't do it. I mean, you can do it again, but it's hard to do it, right? It's not like adding another oil tank, which is pretty easy, or having whoever the bulk oil supplier come twice a week as opposed to, once a week. It's a really, really hard decision to make. And that's, as I think about the future, that making that decision about those millions or tens of millions that we'll spend, or maybe millions as opposed to tens of millions, is really, in some ways, the sort of in a government or a quasi-government role, that's often the hardest, even harder than sort of all the plates that Gil and Bobby and I are juggling, is kind of the part where the board, it's the board of ed or the board of the nonprofit, kind of calls you and asks why you picked a certain power level. Because that's the plate you don't want to drop. I mean, lots of plates you don't want to drop, but that's an awful plate to drop in a public meeting.
Well, we had clean diesel here in the yard, and our tank, after we put in electric vehicles, our tank started to leak into a secondary containment. So we're now out of the diesel business here on site. We fuel still our diesels off site. For electric power, choosing how much power, that was kind of a scary question. On my facilities, side of my transportation job. The tie-in for power was way on the other side of the campus, and it was on my campus. And I learned that it was going to be so many dollars a foot to bring the power over to the yard.
Right.
And it was a scary number. And Edison and I kept walking around, and I know my facility because I've been here for 32 years. And it was like, well, there's a power pole outside of the yard, and there's a transformer there, and that's a whole lot closer to the yard than way over there on the other side of the campus. And couldn't you do it over here? And then everybody scratches their head, and they're like, well, yeah, we could. We could come off that and just come across the short part of the yard and put another transformer in closer. I never dreamed that I would get 4 electric buses in this short of time, and I didn't dream that I would already have grants for 2 more buses. So I sized myself with Edison for 4. That was my commitment to them, and they were willing to spend the money on 4. It was too short-sighted. I made a mistake there. I didn't think that I would already be having 6 in a year. I'll have 6. There's no more money for diesel buses. They're not making any more diesel motors for California after this year. We don't get transit buses in California really after this year because the rest of the United States really has the traditional nose type bus. So that's what the manufacturers are making. So there's some steering that's happening that way. So I would encourage you to think about the longer term. You're likely going to continue down this route. Once you start it, you make these relationships, you're probably going to add more in. And I would encourage you to make them larger. I know Edison over engineered for 4, and they might have enough power lines for me to add 2 more. I know now that I need a rapid charger because having them charge for hours has been good, but you also have chargers that go down. So if you have 4 electric buses and one of your chargers goes down, well, then you've got a little bit of a problem. And you're going to have to start looking for things like plug share or mapping system that's going to show across like your area where there's other chargers. So you can take your buses over there because, Gilbert's a great contingency thinker. I was like, well, gosh, if my chargers go down or the power goes out at Ocean View, where can I take my bus and charge it? Can I go to the harbor? Can I go to the Metropolitan Transit District? Can I make friends with those people? Can I go over to the mall where they've got a level 3 charger in and make a charging account with them? Those kind of things.
So what we did with it is, I'll echo a lot of what my other 2 compatriots have said here, is that you got to look for the whole thing. Like, how do you get there? And then how do you put it into smaller sections so you can take easy bites? We've planned for 14 more chargers, DC fast chargers, and that'll allow us to fill the whole fleet and take care of everything. And so again, I just recommend that you look at the whole picture of how you get there completely sustainable. To us, that's 80%. So if we have 50 buses, we're at fully done, because we need 12 to run routes that are longer and field trips. So I think, doing your homework for the long end game, even though it seems impossible right now, plan for full electrification. That way, every step of the way of how to get there.
Perfect. Thank you all. So next we will have a poll for all the live viewers here, and then we will dive into May's presentation on how TMH can look at your site and see and how we can help you plan for the future in terms of what your current needs are and what the future may look like. But you should all see a poll up on screen right now. The question is, what are the largest pain points and challenges you face in your role around electrification operations? And just so you all know, after May's presentation here, we will have breakout rooms for everyone to connect with someone at the Mobility House if you have any questions for charging and energy management. Looks like the answers are coming through here. And something I always tell Bobby and Gilbert, like, everyone's situation looks different, and we want to treat you how you want to be treated, and we want to know what you want to know. So really, just kind of understanding what challenges everyone is facing helps us and helps everyone else in the industry know what solutions we need to move forward here. So with that, I will pass it over to May to really dive into consulting and case studies and analytics here.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for our three wonderful panelists. I am May, and hopefully you're looking at my screen now. I am the lead data analyst from the Mobility House. Very happy to be here today and share a little bit about how analytical and modeling tools can be used to support electrification. So for today, first, I will use a case study focusing on a project we completed recently with NiceBus. And then I will talk about some other common questions people have experienced during different stages of electrification that modeling can help address. You've already met from NiceBus, so this case study is with NiceBus on their Zarega sites, which they are now in the process of electrifying. And earlier this year, when we started talking to the utility, we realized that there is a limit of power connection on the utility side for this site. And there's only 80 kilowatt power on the site. So this question very naturally came to us. We have to figure out how many vehicles can be put into this site with the limited on-site power. And at that time, NiceBus has already decided that they would be using 19.2 kilowatt L2 AC chargers. So if you're thinking about this problem, a very straightforward way of calculation to understand the number of chargers we can fit in with the 80 kilowatt power would be to divide this 80 kilowatt by the full power of charger, and that will give you a number 4. So 4 chargers can be fit in if they are all operating with full power. But this number for a big bus fleet like NiceBus with ambitious electrification goal is a little underwhelming. But the good news is that that's not the only way you can utilize your power connection. And there are other technologies that will enable you to use the power a lot more efficiently. And to illustrate what I mean, I would like to invite everybody to do a thought experiment with me. So imagine that there is this magical switch, which would automatically switch chargers on and off. And when the charger is charging a vehicle and the vehicle is fully charged, then this magical switch will just turn off this charger and turn on another charger that will charge another vehicle. And if we have each vehicle and each of them have 4 hours to be fully charged, and we have 12 hours at night where all these vehicles are available, then we can easily fit in 3 chargers with using only the power of 1 charger. That is less than 20 kilowatt. And it's worth noting that there's no need for any manual intervention. So this is a magical automatic switch. And in that way, we can stagger charging, and we will be able to install 3 chargers with 20 kilowatt. And in the same spirit, when we have 80 kilowatt, we would be able to install 12 chargers. Well, and I would love to say that this magical switch actually exists, and we've been talking about it, and that's why what we're referring to as the charge management system. But I think you got a hint that the calculation where you have to consider this charge management is pretty complicated, and that's why we have a tool to do that. We have to understand how long it takes for each bus to be fully electrified, fully charged, and we have to understand how much energy each vehicle needs to be fully charged. And these are some of the factors you have to consider to answer those questions. For example, you have to understand what's the physical connection and what is the vehicle spec, what's the vehicle schedule, and what does the charger setup look like. And even more importantly, we've been talking about the cost to charge vehicles. So in that way, you also have to consider what's the utility rate. And For the nice bus study, we used this tool and we took all these factors into consideration to answer this question of how many vehicles can be electrified with this on-site 80 kilowatt power. And this number we find out to be 18 school buses with the 80 kilowatt power, in contrast to the 4 buses that we would be able to do if we don't have any charge management consideration. And this 18 number was able to inform NiceBus's decision. It was not the final number of vehicles they decided to bring on site, because there were other considerations about physical parking constraint and what makes an easy installation after thinking all about charger installation as well. But I just want to share this case study with you to kind of go through the thinking process and what kind of complications there could be when you're in the planning stage. And here we also have an illustration of how the load would look like if you were to bring all these 18 buses into site. And you can see clearly that we will be able to manage the charging of all these 18 buses with 77 kilowatt, where you don't have charge management to electrify the same amount of buses. You would need a lot more than 80 kilowatt to make that happen. So that's the end of the case study. And I would want to talk a little more about what other questions modeling can help answer, depending on what stage of electrification you are. So if you are in the early stage, we're still trying to understand if it's at all feasible to electrify. You might be wondering what routes are feasible to electrify and how many routes can I electrify if I have a limit of power connection on site. And if you are further down the road where maybe you have purchased your vehicle and you've made a plan on electrifying certain routes first, then you might be thinking about chargers and infrastructure planning. You will be asking, what chargers should I consider? And how many of each of these chargers should I install to make sure the operation is successful? And people might, if you're more on the financial side of consideration, you might be asking, how much is charging actually going to cost? And what is the optimal way to charge my vehicle that is economically effective? We've also had customers who had a microgrid system on site with solar and battery, maybe on-site generator, which will make this whole consideration of electrification a little more complicated, because then you have to consider the existence of extra power coming from battery, coming from solar. And questions we can, in that case, help answer would be, for example, can my current solar array power my fleet? And what does the operation of fleet will look like if I have to consider solar and maximizing the utilization of solar power generation? And the last one is not super common, but we've had some adventurous customers and who are interested to explore more advanced charging technologies like bidirectional charging and discharging. And that way, we've had people asking, what is the available vehicle to X programs available in the area? And what's the consideration? What's the estimated benefit of participating in these programs? And how can I get there if I'm interested? So these are all questions I have experienced customer asking with my work at Mobility House. And these are questions that luckily can be addressed with modeling and analytical tools. So with that, this is the end of my presentation, and I will hand it over to Jeff.
Yeah, thank you so much, May. Yeah, just to highlight, talking to either the Mobility House or other charging and energy management systems before you do your project can really help you plan your project effectively and efficiently. May is one of our data analysts, and she's always happy to help look into a site before we even ever start work or have a contract signed. We want to make sure that electrification is right for you. At this time, obviously, vehicles do not have unlimited range, and charging options aren't unlimited either. So we want to make sure that, hey, will this look right for you? Is this something that is feasible? Because electrification can't solve every route at the moment. But as technology progresses, it's going to get better and better. And we're here to advise, hey, can we meet your needs? Or what infrastructure do you need to meet your needs? That is something that we can very, very specifically help you with. So don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is here. And if I can't answer your question, I have a team of over 300 folks who I'm sure would be able to help out. But thank you again to all of our amazing presenters. And we will have breakout rooms now for anyone who wants to speak with various members of the Mobility House team. But thank you again, Bobby, Matt, and Gilbert. We really, really appreciate you. And I don't want to necessarily say that they are available for all of your questions, but I know that this is something they are passionate about, and we all just want to help everyone electrify where they can.
I really enjoyed being part of the presentation. I hope that I helped somebody out there. And if somebody wants to speak with me, you can connect them with me, and I'll tell them what I don't know and what I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.